long-range passes cutting through defenses. No more charging into the final third looking for an assist. That part of Mikel Obi was gone. Jose Mourinho had taken a teenager who had just been named the second best player at the U20 World Cup and turned him into a defensive midfielder overnight. It was a brutal shift. Not everyone would have accepted that, but Mikel did. And just like that, one of the wildest transfer sagas in football history came to an end after a whole year. He became the guardian of Chelsea's midfield, a silent, imposing figure who did the unnoticed work that allowed players like Lampard, Drogba, and Hazard to thrive. Some fans called him boring. Some questioned why he didn't score goals, but Mourinho knew his worth. His teammates knew his worth, and as Chelsea's trophy cabinet filled up, so did Mikel's legacy. At first, he struggled, and it showed. He was hesitant in possession, sometimes too slow to release the ball. English football was faster, more physical than what he was used to, and he struggled to keep up. The early days were frustrating. Mourinho was tough on him, fans were impatient. In the Premier League, it didn't wait for anyone, but Mikel was never one to complain. He adapted, he learned. Soon, the mistakes faded. He stopped losing possession in dangerous areas. He figured out when to step in for a tackle and when to hold his ground. He became harder to dispossess, more aware of his positioning. His decision-making sharpened, and just like that, Chelsea had their new midfield anchor. The beauty of Mikel's game wasn't in what he did, it was in what he prevented. You never saw him lunging into reckless tackles. He wasn't the kind of player who slid across the grass in last-ditch desperation. He didn't need to. He was always a step ahead, always in the right place, reading the game before it happened. He wasn't a playmaker anymore, but he was still a controller. His touch was clean, his passing simple but effective. He didn't force the spectacular. He left that to the stars around him. He was the glue that held everything together, a human safety net. Chelsea's success in those years wasn't built on just attack. It was built on control. Mikel was part of that control. Whenever fans saw Mourinho and Mikel standing on the touchline ready to send him in, they knew exactly what it meant. The game was over for the opponents, and Chelsea were about to shut the doors, bolt the windows, and throw away the key. From the FA Cup finals to the biggest stage of all, the Champions League final in 2012, Bayern Munich at the Allianz Arena in front of their own fans. A game where Chelsea had no business surviving, let alone winning. Didier Drogba scored the equalizer. Petr Cech saved the penalties. But Mikel quietly played the game of his life. 90 minutes, 120 minutes, not a single mistake. He sat deep, broke up every Bayern attack, shielded his defenders like his life depended on it. He didn't make headlines the next day, but those who truly watched that game know Chelsea wouldn't win that final without Mikel. For all his brilliance, Mikel was never fully appreciated. Fans wanted excitement, they wanted goals, they wanted highlight reel moments. And Mikel, he wasn't that kind of player. He didn't run around wildly, he didn't score screamers from 30 yards out, he didn't demand the ball and dictate play like Xavi or Pirlo. He did his job, quietly, efficiently, and for some, that wasn't enough. Fans called him slow, some accused him of playing it too safe. Sideways passing, they said. He doesn't take risks. But that was never his role. His job wasn't to take risks. His job was to make sure others could. And yet, because he wasn't scoring, because he wasn't making Hollywood passes, he was criticized. Even in Nigeria, his own country, some fans wanted more from him. They remembered the Mikel from the U20 World Cup. They wanted the attacking magician, not the defensive wall. John Obi Mikel was never the loudest voice in the room. He didn't seek the cameras. He didn't chase the headlines. But when he stepped onto the pitch in the green and white of Nigeria, there was no mistaking who was in charge. Chelsea made him a warrior, but Nigeria made him a leader. For over a decade, he carried the hopes of a football-obsessed nation. From the streets of Lagos to the stadium in Abuja, he was seen as the man who could finally bring consistency, stability, and most importantly, trophies to the Super Eagles. And in 2013, he delivered. Nigeria had been waiting. For nearly 2 decades, they had watched other African nations rise. The memories of 1994, when they conquered the continent, were fading. The golden generation that shined in the 90s was gone. The country had endured heartbreak after heartbreak. Then came South Africa 2013. Mikel wasn't just a player in that tournament. He was the heartbeat of the team. He controlled the midfield with a level of authority that had become his trademark. The game slowed down when he had the ball. He picked the right passes. He made sure Nigeria never lost control. The Super Eagles marched through the tournament, and in the final against Burkina Faso, they completed the mission. A lone goal from Sunday NBA sealed it. But make no mistake, this was Mikel's tournament. He dictated games with ease, led by example, and walked off the pitch that night a champion of Africa. Nigeria had reclaimed its throne, and at the center of it all was John Obi Mikel. But as with everything in his career, the moment belonged to someone else. The headlines were about Mba's goal. The celebrations focused on the attackers, Mikel's influence, his calm leadership, his ability to control the biggest moments. Wasn't flashy enough for the front pages. It didn't matter. He had done what truly mattered. He had won. Winning the AFCON should have been Mikel's defining moment for Nigeria, but 3 years later, he proved again why he was different from the rest. Nigeria, as always, was unprepared. The team was stranded in Atlanta, unable to fly to Brazil due to financial difficulties. The players were frustrated. Some wanted to quit. Then Mikel did something remarkable. He paid. Out of his own pocket, the Super Eagles captain covered travel expenses for the team, ensuring they got to the tournament. And when they arrived, he wasn't just their captain, he was their best player. Nigeria's squad wasn't filled with stars, but Mikel carried them. He scored, assisted, and led from the front. Against all odds, Nigeria made it to the semifinals. They fell short of the final, but Mikel ensured they left Brazil with a bronze medal. The Olympic Games don't always get the same level of respect as other competitions, but for Nigeria, that medal meant everything. It was a symbol of resilience, of fighting against the odds, and it was made possible by a man who never cared about personal glory, only about winning. But even after everything he had given to Nigeria, the criticism never stopped. Some fans wanted more. The same old question kept coming up: why wasn't he more attacking? Even former Nigerian officials hinted at their frustrations. At club level, he played as a defensive midfielder, but in the national team, he was often pushed further forward, expected to create, score, and carry the attack. It was an unfair burden. And then there was the issue with the media. Mikel didn't do interviews. He barely spoke to the Nigerian press. Some saw this as arrogance, but those who knew him understood. He didn't trust the way Nigerian football was run. He had seen too many false promises, too many political games behind the scenes, so he kept his distance. And in return, the Nigerian press often turned against him. Even after winning AFCON, even after leading the team to Olympic glory, some still questioned his commitment. Did it bother him? Maybe, but if there was one thing John Obi Mikel had learned in his career, it was this: the job wasn't to impress, the job was to win. When Mikel finally stepped away from football, he left behind a resume that demanded respect. 2 Premier League titles, 4 FA Cups, 2 Football League Cups, 1 Community Shield, 1 UEFA Champions League, 1 UEFA Europa League, 1 Africa Cup of Nations, 1 Olympic bronze medal. He may not have been the star of the show, but he was always there, always doing the job that needed to be done. And when Chelsea needed him most, on that unforgettable night in Munich, he delivered. For years, Mikel avoided the press. He barely spoke about his career while he was playing. But in retirement, something changed. He found his voice. The Obi-Wan podcast isn't just another football show. It has become one of the most quoted platforms in football media. And Mikel, the once silent figure in the dressing room, has become one of the most outspoken voices in the sport. He has called out players, and more famously, he has been critical of Chelsea and Senegalese striker Nicholas Jackson for not being clinical enough in front of goal.
I really like the guy as a football player. I like him. There's something there as a football player. The finishing part of his game needs to be worked on.
Mikel had spent years holding his tongue. Now he is saying everything he had kept inside. One of the topics he has become vocal about is nationality switches in football. Mikel believes players should make a firm decision early in their careers, commit to a country, and stick to it.
Nigerian FA come up to me when I was at Chelsea saying, Mikel, can you try to convince so-and-so to play for his fatherland, Nigeria? You are from Nigeria. Your dad is Nigerian. Your mom is Nigerian. Why don't you present your fatherland, Nigeria? No. We want to play for England, France, whatever it is. Yeah.
He has seen too many young players hesitate, unsure whether to represent their birth nation or switch to a European powerhouse. And he is not holding back when discussing it. For a man who had given everything to Nigeria, who had sacrificed his own money to ensure his teammates could compete, loyalty matters, and now he is using his platform to push that message. So how do you measure the career of a man who never chased the spotlight? Some will remember him for the transfer saga between Manchester United and Chelsea. Some will remember his performances in the Champions League final. Some will remember the quiet dominance in midfield that made him one of the most reliable players of his era, but those who truly watched him, those who understand football beyond goals and assists, will remember something else. They will remember a player who did the dirty work without complaint. A player who sacrificed individual glory for team success. A player who in the biggest moments always delivered. Obi Mikel didn't need to score goals to make history. He already had.